Recording in progress. Good afternoon. We are going to call the Hood River White Salmon Bridge Authority regular meeting on September 23rd, 2024 to order at 2:01 p.m. Let the record show Oregon has Commissioner Fox, Babbitt, and Folsom present. Commissioner Thomas and alternate Thomas and alternate Edwards are present as well. On the Washington side, Commissioner Anderson is present. Commissioner Gibson, I think, is calling in. And then we have Ben or
They're coming on. Ben's coming on.
Yeah, we already got on page go. There is alternate Berger, and do we have alternate Gilchrist online? Can you tell?
I don't see him.
Okay, for the time being, alternate Berger is a voting member. Okay, we will move on to modifications, changes to the agenda. Is there anything we need to add to the agenda? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Any thirds, anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay, we have the meeting minutes from September 9th, 2024. Has everyone had a chance to review those? Any changes? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Move that we approve the meetings from 2020.
September 9th.
Date was
September 9th.
September 9th as written.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. We'll now move into public comment. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person, but if you are in the public, I would give you longer than that because nobody ever likes to comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to provide public comment? Please raise your hand, *6.
Oh, there's Doug.
Let the record show Commissioner Gibson is now present online.
I should have put free donuts or something like that.
I don't know if that gets to public. We should just say something to piss them off and then they'd show up.
I'd rather give some donuts.
All right, we will close public comment since no one raised their hands. Executive report, co-chair's report, Commissioner Fox.
I'll add some notes to the engineering.
All right, bridge director, project director update.
All right, I'm just gonna a few things because we're gonna cover more in some of the other topics. So there is a meeting with HRWSBA on Thursday of this week to walk through the communications and process for edits that need to come up or will come up for the environmental documents and the NEPA documents, as well as finalizing the reevaluation. All of that will then help us to move towards the ROD. So it should be a good meeting. We've got a number of people from the authority as well as FHWA, ODOT, and Kiewit that will be participating in that meeting. There's also a meeting on October 1st, and I'll leave that for Dan to give you the details on. We did finalize the WSDOT funding, so we do have the additional 10 million. So we have the full 15 million now available from WSDOT that was in their 23 to 25 biennium. I'll let Grant, I think, is going to speak to the Hood River County and others. So I'll wait on that.
Congratulations on the extra and that.
Yes. On the infra grant, we are continuing to work through with FHWA on the funding for the infra grants. It's with their HCFA, which is their Acquisitions and Grants Management Office. So it's the first round of review that moves it out of the region and to DC. So we're hoping in the next week or so we'll hear comments. It's been up there about 2 weeks now, and they said we should start hearing comments about 2 to 3 weeks. So we are due to get comments back from them.
So that allows us to get access to the 200 million.
That once that agreement is done, that'll provide access to the 200 million. Yes.
Provides access, except that we still don't have the commitment from Oregon and Washington, so we don't get that.
Good lead way. So we actually have received 2 other things from FHWA. One is a tapered match, which does allow us to actually access that funds earlier without having the local. So it does give us some access to that. as well as the CFR 217 that allows us to count money that we are spending locally right now as match for those funds. We're also have a request out for a third ask, which would allow for money that's being spent now prior to the agreement for the infra to reimburse it. So say we took the Hood River, I'll use Hood River County loan, for example. If we took the Hood River County loan, we expended that, we could take infra money and pay that off with infra money if we would choose to do. So,
But it's still not wrong to say that we can't fully access the infra loan without the Oregon state money being committed.
Eventually, we will need to have, yes, the Oregon State, we are
This is
allowed.
fundamental to the
It
message
does-
that we're delivering to the legislature.
It is. It does not eliminate the need to have the match
Right.
that we need. It just reorients when we need to have the match.
It gives us access earlier than we'd otherwise be.
Only because we have partial funds, right? That we're not able to use. We can only match against what's actually committed, and we can't match against when it hasn't been committed.
I think it's more flexible than that.
So this allows us to presume that we have 105 million from the Oregon legislature when they haven't said that we have it.
Carrie, you want to weigh in on that? Because I don't think
Yeah.
it allows you to
I wanna-
leverage.
I want to be a little bit careful. So there are terms floating around here like committed and appropriated. And so we are also pursuing as a fourth item with the infra people, what we have labeled as progressive obligation. And so what we're asking for is for the infra people to obligate $75 million of funding right now, and that will get us through phase 1B of the project. And we currently have local, and when I say local, it can be state, but we currently have state and local funds committed, not in the bank, but committed to this project to match that 75 million. And then the idea is they would come back at some point later, maybe a year later, and obligate the other 125 million once we have the additional funds that we need from Oregon and some additional funds from Washington as well committed. So that's our way to be able to get access to those funds early when combined with the tapered match and the prior authorization that have already been approved. We do not have a definitive answer yet. So I want to be a little bit careful. We do not have a definitive answer yet from Federal Highways on whether they will approve this progressive obligation. But in the phone call that we had with them last week, we received what I consider to be some really hopeful signs that they're seriously considering it and that they're likely to approve it.
I just want to make sure that what we're telling legislators is precisely correct.
Yeah.
And what I've been saying, and hopefully I have the script right, is that we need a commitment from Oregon of 105 million in this session in order to be able to continue this project on time and on schedule. Without that commitment, we are unable to keep the project on its current schedule, and we'll have to go back to the drawing boards on a big chunk of stuff.
I think that's the
You are
safe
100% correct.
Yeah.
That is
Thank you.
100%
We
correct.
cannot go to construction without a fully funded project, and that 125 commitment goes towards a fully funded project.
But the immediacy of this year's progress
Is the commitment.
is the commitment, and that's
Commitment.
the piece that
Yes.
we've been communicating carefully to the legislators. I just want to make sure that we haven't said anything that's wrong. So
No,
I feel good.
You're correct.
Thanks.
With the tapered match, that money can actually come later, but it has to be
Yes.
committed
Yes.
now.
And so we've been telling them that we don't need the funds. We don't need all of the funds this year, but we do need the commitment. And are you saying, Carrie, that is presuming something which hasn't been 100% finalized?
No, we already have tapered match approved.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
what that means is if the money is committed but not yet appropriated, that's fine. We can get access to the infra funds based on the commitment from the legislature.
Okay, thank you. No, that's,
But also, guys, I think we need to have the position. If they've got the money available, we will take it immediately. Don't let us lose out of it.
It will,
That's not the problem.
it will reduce the overall debt load and cost of the bridge the earlier we have the
Right.
funds in our pocket, yes.
And can you give me some idea of order of magnitude of, you know, if we have 100% of the funds in this fiscal year, let's say, right, in 2025, 26, how much less debt service would we have? Right, not debt service, how much less interest payments would we have?
Oh,
Just make up a number.
no.
No,
I mean,
it-
are we talking millions of dollars?
Yeah, I mean, you could also,
Thousands of dollars.
you could also look at it as
He can make that up.
if you look at the last year, we added $20 million because being 4% more.
Right.
You add another year, you can almost say it's another at least $20 million
At least.
I've been
delay.
saying that, I've been saying
Yeah.
precisely those words, that
Yeah.
that's at least 20 million more.
Yeah.
If we slip by a year, and frankly, we don't have the plans in place, so we don't know how much more it will be than that.
Right.
Yeah.
But just in terms of financing, it's financing inflation, it's gonna be at least 20 million.
Conservatively, if we had another year on the schedule, $20 million, we can comfortably say that. Regarding the financing part of it, depends on a number of factors, on what we load with debt, what we don't, what the terms of that debt are, et cetera, et cetera. If we have all of the money in our bank account, in our pocket tomorrow, super
we
cheap
would,
bridge, we're
we
done.
would not need to borrow any money.
Yeah,
in that
we wouldn't need to borrow any
circumstance.
money, and we'd
We'd
be
need
able
to, we would have no debt costs.
I don't have the answer in terms of debt savings that we'd be able to realize.
Okay.
But it would be not nothing. It would be quite a bit.
So the other way to look at it, if we have to add debt service to the project cost.
Which we are.
that's an increase to the cost.
Which
We don't have that in the 520.
Yep,
It's not built in.
that's right.
So it's
another
we don't
topic
have to
that
do it, it's a.
And that's what we're trying to minimize right now as best we can.
Yeah.
Yes.
so something else to add to this discussion is that we have an unresolved issue around access to working capital. So it's something that we've been discussing as well, which Kara, I'd love, and if there's any discussion around this with the infra team around potential access to working capital. But right now we have very limited facilities that are either in place or in any of our agreements or in negotiation that would provide us cash in advance to make payments that then we would then seek reimbursement for. So, right now we're from, what I can see, and Grant, let me know if you see this differently, but we're looking at, around 2 months of potentially working capital that we'll need to have, minimum in order to, to meet kind of a standard cash conversion cycle, which, would apply at the peak construction phase. Maybe could be smoothed a little bit by contractor payments, but, would certainly be north of $30 million.
So we did bring that up at the White House and also over the Department of Transportation. And I think the response we got was, it's going to be tough for the feds to change the rules to be able to do this, but they didn't say no. They said it's intriguing and that there's other projects similar to ours with small local outfits that don't have a cash flow, and they need to look at that. And we gave them an option of something called a zero base. And so I think the action was they were going to get back to us within a couple of weeks to have further discussion on this.
And we do have emails where they are looking into the advanced payments option.
Yeah.
And we heard that, we met with FHWA last week on the infra grant we had a 2-hour meeting with them. And that they brought that subject up. And so they did hear you at your meetings in Washington, DC, and they didn't say yes, but they didn't say no either. And so they did indicate that they were very aware of our cash flow situation and our desire to have some kind of an advance. It could take the form of perhaps a mobilization payment up front. There's a number of ways to approach this. And they're open to discussing, but they also made it clear that it would be a serious departure from their usual way of doing business.
Well, that's okay with us as long as they approve it.
Absolutely.
And there's a few different options they could take. I mean, they could also pay off of invoice, not off of payment, which changes that scenario for us quite a bit too.
We had an interesting discussion with them on why they do it this way. And that is to protect them from paying an invoice that hadn't been reviewed and paid. So we got into the what if discussion. Well, how about if we approve the invoice, we send it to you, you approve it basically immediately, and we have an electronic transfer of funds already pre-set up. We're sitting in an account that allows us to quickly access it. So we tried to use the approach, why do you need this? And then how could we work around that to meet the intent?
You're basically describing escrow, right?
Yeah.
So,
All right,
Shall we move on?
move on.
stay tuned.
So the next grant I wanted to talk about was the Bridge Investment Program. We were not successful last year. We reapplied in August. Carrie, I think this week, correct me if I'm wrong, we're sending in our request for a debrief.
It was done today.
Okay. So we'll be debriefing with them. We had this week to do it. So we'll be debriefing with them and then moving forward with our grant application. November 1st is the due date.
Well, 14 days from
14
whenever,
days,
14
yeah.
days from whenever they grant the debrief.
Or November 1st.
Well, it may be or November 1st, and I'm not clear on that. But anyway, we're planning on by November 1st submitting a revised, some revised BIP information, and our BIP application goes into the process once again with a highly recommended rating. So
I actually have a small update to that. I just a few minutes back, we got the email response from the BIP team. Looks like they're giving us a couple of options. The farthest out is the October 4th. So 14 days after that would be 18th would be our deadline.
okay. We can
It's gonna be in
I was hoping
gonna
for
be in
November
Cancun.
1st. It doesn't look like it's going to be November 1st, is it?
Nope. Looks like it'll be October 18th.
October 18th.
All right. Well, now we know.
We gotta do a little scrambling now.
Yes, we are. Okay, so well, it's good to know that. I think the other important thing related to right of way and conflict of interest, we'll have more discussion about that. It's an action item on the agenda, is just the conflict of interest in order to move right of way discussions with the port and move that forward. FHWA sent us some additional comments. I think it's important for the board to have that conversation today about the conflict of interest and the actions we're going to take action to make sure we're avoiding any conflicts. And then we can go back to FHWA for their approval or concurrence to move forward with the discussions with the port. So and we'll have more conversations about that.
Any questions? All right, government relations report. Mr. Marr.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Dan Marr here. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. 2 weeks ago, during that meeting, there were a few of us on an airplane out to Washington, D.C. As you all know, Commissioners Anderson, Fox, and Kiefler joined Mike Shannon and myself as we traveled back to meet with all 8 relevant offices of the Northwest Congressional Delegation to deliver our appreciation for the $200 million infra grant that we were awarded earlier this year. While we were there, we also met with a couple folks from the Biden administration over at the White House administrative building. And then in a separate meeting, which was mentioned earlier, we met with staff from USDOT and their Build America Bureau, along with Federal Highways. That's where the discussion about the about the reimbursement process took place. So good meetings back there. I don't know, Commissioners Anderson or Fox or Mike, if you have anything to add about your impressions from those meetings.
I'll tell you, I thought the congressional meetings were fine. We kind of checked the box. Everybody was happy and cordial. I think the two meetings that really gave us some things to think about were the White House and the Department of Transportation. I thought those were excellent meetings.
Yeah, we definitely got into the weeds there and worked through a few issues. Those were good. You know, I think the congressional meetings, you know, good to see those folks. Good to express our appreciation. And really, we're thinking about, you know, this meeting as the first of two, right? Once we get our reapplication finalized for the Bridge Investment Program, there will be another delegation of folks headed out to DC to ask for support for that application. We're targeting November or December for that trip. So stay tuned.
I would just add that it's really great when you go back there and you have meetings with the senators and they show up and they know the project, they're prepared, they have good questions to ask, that it shows that they're invested in it. And these are people who sit on all the right committees. And so I would just say that while we were doing a thank you tour, it was also really good to see how committed they are to the project.
Yeah, indeed. And they track it too. It's nice to see, you know, Patty Murray or Congressman Newhouse, you know, they understand what's going on with the project. So it's nice to see that level of engagement. I think as far as the electeds themselves, we some meetings we had staff, other meetings, the electeds, we met with Patty Murray in person, Dan Newhouse, Senator Merkley, Congresswoman Glusenkamp Perez. Anybody I'm forgetting? Or the rest all staff?
Rest for staff.
Cantwell, Wyden, Bentz, and Blumenauer. Congressman Blumenauer, stepped out of a Ways and Means Committee meeting to talk with us in the hallway there. Yep. So good trip. Thanks for everybody. Thanks everyone for taking place, and our partners over at Summit for lining all those up. Felt like they all went pretty smooth. Also big in the GR world right now is looking ahead to the October 1st meeting. So that's taking shape. Of course, we're hosting transportation leaders from both the Oregon and Washington legislatures, working to deliver our annual project update and briefing them on what's upcoming in 2025. So also a relationship touch, demonstrate project progress, and set the stage for what's coming up in 2025 for the project and what will be our asks to the Oregon and Washington legislatures. So we've got a couple of commissioners on tap. Commissioner Babbitt is going to be emceeing the event, kicking us off. Commissioner Anderson will be presenting on the project itself. Commissioner Polson will be talking about the financing plan and what our asks will be to the legislatures. We'll also have reps from both HNTB and Kiewit on board to give a quick update from those firms' perspectives, and then substantial time at the end for conversation. Just like any other meeting, we're in the middle of campaign season here, and so we are, both of our teams of lobbyists are working to land RSVPs. We're hoping for maybe 8 total legislators between the two states, and then in a good robust conversation. So staff is working to refine talking points and messaging for the event, and holding a dry run ahead of time. It's a big deal to get leadership from both states in the room at the same time. I think a lot of opportunity for good conversation. So we want to make sure that we want to get the message right. Questions? Any thoughts about the October 1st meeting before we move along?
How long do you expect it to last?
We booked 90 minutes, but good meetings end on time, great meetings end early. So we are aiming to keep the discussion at about, or the presentation piece to about 40 minutes with some additional time at the end for Q&A. So if we can wrap up at the hour 10 mark, that would be ideal.
Okay. I've just got to push everything back for the rest of my commissioner meeting. So Thanks.
Right. Could I add a subject, add a topic on this general subject?
Yeah.
So I was at the Association of Oregon Counties meeting, the board meeting in Salem this week. And I brought up with their legislative affairs director the issue. I wanted to make sure that she was aware of what we're doing with the Oregon legislature so that we could avoid any conflict with the AOC's own policy directives in that area. And she was aware of what we're doing. I've told her a couple of times before, she was aware of what we're doing, and she does not anticipate any conflict, but she did point out that the area for conflict would be that if there were some effort made to take the commitments to this bridge project out of the 30% that counties get in Oregon from the transportation budget, you know, the federal monies, they get 30% of it. If there's any effort to take that out of it, then that would probably be a problem. That would be a conflict. She doesn't know of anyone planning to do that, hasn't heard of anything, but she just wanted to make sure that we understood the structure of where we could get in conflict. So I just wanted to bring that up because I hadn't had a chance to tell Dan, and I think it is something that we should have on a list to at least be tracking to make sure that there's not that we're not running up against all the rest of the counties at some point.
So I guess we were going to have to rely on our lobbyists to keep track of that as things progress.
Yeah, I mean, as proposals start to get made for how to give us $105 million commitment, what's that going to look like? So that's one of the reasons why every time I talk about the 105 million, I remind the folks of two different things. Number one is there's huge leverage for them because there's you got a $520 million bridge for 125 million, basically, with the federal and the state monies, and that you're not getting a maintenance burden.
None of the liabilities.
You have none of the liabilities. You have no operations, no maintenance. It's not on ODOT's book. So the Oregon legislature keeps on making the statement that they are focusing now on dealing with ODOT's maintenance issues before they touch any big projects. And we have to keep reminding people that ours is not technically a big project in that sense, because maybe I should say it differently. We're not creating further maintenance problems. So we should be considered different.
Further fiscal burden on the state.
Yes, right. Clearly, you don't want to build other big projects before you figure out how to maintain them. And the projects that came before them, we're not one of those. So that's the way I have to say it.
But do you want a bridge?
Do I want a bridge? Yes. And I have to say, the discussions I've had, the legislative discussions I've had were just really positive. And I talked this week to Mannix and to Sosa, and both of them were, just basically came straight out and said, "Yep, I'm a strong supporter of this. We just have to. Thanks for giving me the information I need to talk to the rest of my caucus about this." So I think that,
And thanks for making those meetings too.
Yeah. By the way, so I told Dan about this, but right after meeting with Mannix, 2 days later, I was in Salem. And I went up to the bar, and he walked in and came up to the bar, and we wound up spending 45 minutes talking. And he remembered who I was, and he remembered that he had told me, "You had me at hello." And he said, "But I really don't say that very often." I said, "Well, great. We really appreciate the fact that you're saying it in this context." And then he told me the whole story of his life. So, yeah,
Cool.
and he drinks more than I
Right.
do.
Yep. And certainly point taken about keeping AOC up to speed. Once we get into legislature and the sausage is being made and we're figuring out where these dollars are actually coming from, there's going to be a few organizations that will want to kind of keep in the loop as we tick through that. That's what's happening on the GR front. Any questions for me?
And who are the other organizations? You said there are a few that you want to keep notified.
Just saying that we'll want to keep we'll kind of want to keep a list of organizations that that kind of care about how that funding flows. I don't have it to rattle off the top of my head.
Okay. I guess like SDAO would be another one.
Yep, SDAO, I think.
Arthur, you're gonna have to stop using that.
I was waiting for you to say that.
I was good there.
We're gonna leave that out, see how long before he catches it. Good work.
So,
I did this at the Association of Oregon Counties meeting, also Special District Association of Oregon.
You really didn't know that?
no, I thought he said EAO or
No,
something.
SDAO.
SDAO. Oh, he said it fast. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I knew that.
I swallowed
All right.
acronym.
Anything else for questions for Mr. Martin? Before we get any more off topic?
I don't think yourself done.
Okay, partner updates. Do we have anyone from Federal Highways, ODOT, WashDOT stakeholders that would like to give us an update? Tell us we're doing great. Or we're doing anything wrong. I don't see anyone.
I would like to thank ODOT and WashDOT, though. We are submitting our design criteria to them. They have been reviewing, providing us comments back. So I do appreciate their time in reviewing the design criteria and providing us that feedback.
All right. Duly noted. Okay, shall we move on to the consent agenda?
Well, I did at the meeting in the Dells, I did thank Director Strickler for all the support that they've been giving us.
Great.
I had a chance to talk to him personally.
Would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just one real quick one on, as part of the engineering construction committee, and I know you guys probably did too. We looked at the search for the HNTV invoice and it does exist. It's an attachment to the notes and I very much appreciate that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion. Thank you, Ben. Next up, funding and finance, Mr. Paulson.
Oh, that's me. We are going to, the main thing to talk about is the Hood River County financing and loan that we're talking about. It's taking longer than anticipated. We're going to set up another meeting with them to go over terms. There seems to be a little bit of conflict or confusion or something going on, to make sure that everybody's on the same page and we come to terms and we can make sure our lawyers write it up and get that done. So
Is that meeting going to include the lawyers?
yes, yeah, it's going to include myself, Michael Shannon, the lawyers, Debbie was online, county administrator Allison, and their bond counsel. Our lawyer, Mark, who is online. And hopefully we can get all that squared away and done, and the councils can write up the terms and we'll get that done in short order. My understanding is that the two councils are in a little bit of conflict on the terms, so we need to fix that. That's the update on that part. There's a new PCE that's been created. You guys can look at that on the SharePoint. What else? There's all the usual stuff that we constantly work on. Oh, we talked that at the last meeting that's in the minutes. We talked about the tapering. It was brought up in prior. A lot of that sort of stuff that we talked about on the 9th. And that feeds into the Oregon discussion on how we can use other funds and address the request that we have from Oregon and Washington to match when they're going to provide us money versus when we are going to be able to use funds that we already have available to us, like infra, so they can commit funds in a more timely manner and get started without necessarily having their money in our pocket today. So staff has worked really hard on having the feds agree to allow us to use tapering as a method to do that. And we talked about that on the 9th. Among other things.
Say anything about the Bill 20 invoicing? Just what I was thinking on that was that we've been working with FHWA on our Bill 20, and making sure that our invoicing and approach is aligned with what they want to see and the details behind what they want to see. So I think we've got a good alignment now with that. Tahi, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I think we've got a good place now where we're in alignment and can start getting those reimbursements. We're going to be submitting like every 2 weeks to FHWA to get the build grant fully reimbursed. Tahi?
Yeah, we had a trial run last week and they had a quick review, which was super fast. And I think, Mike, we can change it to 1 week interval because they can speed up now. However, they did point out that we need to have a cash management procedures, which is in compliance with CFR 200-305. And I have drafted this procedure over the weekend because we got the review response Thursday night. So I spent Friday and over the weekend, and it's almost the final stage. And I'm gonna share this with Debbie, and we are having a meeting this afternoon after this meeting to go over what other requirements FHWA is requiring as per they wanna see what the matches are per each invoices, but we are suspecting that they are not really understanding the taper match being applied. And in fact, maybe we need to address taper match approval to apply to build 20 as well. So we have to strategize how to approach that. But however, we will bring this procedure back to this board to get the approval and use it for the cash management involved with federal funding disbursement. What's interesting in the CFR 200-305 is that federal payments more encourages and then try their best to disperse immediate needs. And I think that's kind of contradictory when they said, I need to see the proof of payment, whereas the CFR is saying that we don't want to hold up any payments. And then local agencies, non-federal agencies like us, to disperse the money to the contractors who's been working. So it will be interesting to point that out to FHWA for that contradictory or their preference to see they really need to see the proof of payment.
Luck with that.
You know, I just kind of stepping in here for a minute. I believe as an organization, we should take the attitude we're going to pay our contractors on time for work they perform. Trying to stretch contractors out on payment terms to try and fix our internal problem, I'm against.
This is
I think
why
it sets a bad precedent. And I don't think we should touch that with a 10-foot pole.
This is why we're working on getting the loans.
Exactly. So we shouldn't rely.
Suggested that we were depending on the flow.
No, there's been some talk about, hey, perhaps we can stretch a payment schedule out to 60 days or 90 days. And I'm personally, just because I came from that industry, that's not the right thing to do. You're just putting that burden on somebody else.
Didn't
It's
we,
our responsibility.
didn't we negotiate though, when we chose the contractor that they said at the time that they were willing to accept that float and be paid off of invoice?
We are abiding by all the terms that we have agreed to with all of our contractors, nothing more, nothing less. And we're not going to negate that responsibility in any way, shape, or form.
But when we negotiated that, part of that percentage that they put on top, you know, if they've got to go out and get the money on their side that they're paying interest on, they built that into their business plan.
Well, I think and I'm not saying that's not true. If we can get our funding lined up where we don't have to go out and we can in fact make payments in not 30 days, then we ought to go back for a negotiation and reduce the impact on the contractor.
Anything we can do that reduces the overall cost of the bridge, we should do.
Agreed.
Okay. Anything else for funding?
Not this time.
All right, we'll move on to engineering and construction. Commissioner Fox.
Yeah, Catherine, jump in whenever, but basically we started out our meeting, we looked at all the financial reports from Kiewit and HNTB. Couple interesting things to note. HNTB has gone through an adjustment and we agreed to. So their variance is very, very small and their variance at the end of the year is relatively small. Kiewit took more of, Kiewit took more of the standard approach. They don't change their history. We track variance. Right now, they're projecting a variance of about $1 million underrun by the end of the year. And that underrun is going to get used up because we know we've asked them to do some extra work, specifically in the area of estimating, to be able to, work this new grant. But what was very interesting, and I want to compliment Kiewit and Sarah in particular, the engineering effort is underrunning on wage rate and pretty much dead on hours. So she's getting the work done, but she's using cheaper people to get it done, which is saving money that allows us to be able to absorb additional work. So that's a really good positive sign this stage of the job that we're not just burning a bill up. So I want to congratulate Sarah. I want to congratulate James for watching out for us. Good effort so far. We spent a lot of time going through the scope decision log with Reddy. And Reddy, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the stuff that we talked about that I'll just mention here with a aging steel, we're still going to have to do a little bit of painting at the joints. And we talked about that kind of at great length. And we recognize, with aging steel, you're going to have to do that. So
Weathering steel,
excuse me.
The reason for the painting is to keep the weathering from running the rust down
onto the concrete.
And the concrete and staining them. So you paint those sections so that it doesn't do that.
I'm sorry, so you're painting the sections over
Above
the
the piers in order to prevent from
It's
getting
not
rusting.
because it's a joint, it's because it's above.
No, and they did say that where we have the splices,
Right,
you're probably going to have spot paint some of that.
because of the welding.
Yeah, well, or the connection where you bolt through.
Right.
You got a little bit of exposure there, so, but it'll be touch up type stuff. And then we can expect somewhere between 5 and 20 years, you're going to have to do a touch up on it. So, and I won't have to worry about it. Maybe these guys will. The other area that we talked about at great length was the bike ped and the barriers between the bike ped and the outside barriers. We wanted to make sure that we all understand the bicycle path. Siri.
She's a pretty.
Yeah, the bicycle path we can use for emergency vehicles, like, even a fire truck or ambulance and kind of thing, but we're not going to open it up to normal traffic.
Right.
You're not going to put a whole bunch of cars on it.
Right.
If that's what we wanted to do, then we have to change the design and beef it up. So we said, nope, we'll keep it to emergency only. That allows us to cheapen up the barrier on the pedestrian side. It has to be a barrier type, not something that'll withstand a 45-mile-an-hour crash by a truck.
Right.
There will be a barrier for that between the truck and the bicycle path pedestrian. You can't get through there, and likewise on the other side, on the east side of the bridge, that's barrier protection.
It just has to withstand the crash from a 45-mile-an-hour e-bike.
We also talked about that, quite frankly. And kind of the position we took is that we're putting at least 5-foot bike lanes on the bridge. We don't want bicycles allowed on the car lanes. That's just an accident waiting to happen and a liability for us. We're putting all this money into bicycle lanes. They need to use the bicycle lanes.
So I think that certainly makes sense. There is the issue of the blurry line now between e-bikes and e-motorcycles. And so I'm sure that ODOT can advise us on how to separate those, but.
Clearly motorcycles is on the auto side.
Motorcycle.
Vehicle classes, it's either you need a.
Yeah, I think it's a minimum maximum speed limit.
Yeah, there is.
I was gonna say
You get Lance Armstrong across that bridge, you should be able to ride a bike, no problem.
Right.
You can go 30 miles an hour.
Right.
So.
Yeah, there's
Maybe not now, but.
I was gonna say, have you seen them lately?
Yeah, there's different classes for those sorts of things,
Right.
so.
The other thing we talked about, there are some expansion joints on the bridge. And there's a couple of different types. One, every time you run over the expansion joint, there's a big boom, boom, boom. So we elected to go to the quieter version,
Right.
to keep the noise down.
Which is nice because I can hear it from my house all night long.
In that case,
Unless it's a loud one.
and that's the big issues that we talked about. Catherine, do you have anything to add?
I would just also like to say thank you to everybody who's been involved in the NEPA meetings and the tribal coordination. There's been a lot of that this past month, but nothing else to add. I think you did a great job, Mr. Fox. Over.
Related to the subjects, the noise, something came up during the aesthetics discussions, this noise of the traffic on the bridge, and that's related to the kind of pavement used and to the speeds. Have you discussed that yet?
We haven't really addressed that one yet, that I remember.
No, and some of that comes down to concrete can be just as quiet as asphalt if it's built correctly. And the joints that are done on there that's taken into account.
Right.
So I think it's something we can talk about. What we would need from the authority is what level of noise, and we could bring you some options here, what you have. But what level of noise is acceptable versus what's an unacceptable level,
Okay.
and determine what we want to meet.
And have you discussed wind deflection at all?
Not in how we would resolve its impacts to bike ped, you mean, or bike traffic too?
First bike bed and then the wind goes from there.
We have not talked about how we would break that up in order to.
Right.
No, I know it's something that came up in the aesthetics committee meetings and there was a lot of discussion, but we.
There's a pretty good body of engineering work on methodologies to deflect wind, and I want to make sure that we have people who at least look into that and consider it.
Yeah, so what Catherine mentioned is this last week, we also had a meeting with Cryptic, who is kind of a.
Columbia River into tribal fisheries.
There you go.
Yeah.
The 4 treaty tribes all have an agreement with this organization. It's made up of the 4 treaty tribes.
Right.
So we went down and gave them a presentation about the bridge, about what we're trying to do, about salmon save, about the safety zone that we want to establish, why we need to do it, showed some pictures of heavy lift cranes and that kind of thing, trying to educate them that if you've got 10 barges out in the river and you got a 12-foot fishing boat and you try and go up against each other, the fishing boat's going to lose. And it's a safety issue why we're having this discussion. I think it went over well. We got a lot of good questions and some good discussion. Was there anything magical that came out of it? Probably no, but it was a kind of a continuation of we got to do it. So anything there, Mike? Or Catherine, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I was not there in person, but I was able to attend virtually. And the way that I interpreted the meeting was that it went very well. I think Mr. Fox is underestimating and underselling himself. He had everybody in the meeting hall engaged, and I believe that we have a really good relationship now with tribes because of the work that has been laid, and I'm just excited for the next steps. What those are going to be are obviously out of our hands, but I think that we have a good, foot forward. I think that if we as a commission can potentially try to focus on the labor and getting people involved, there were some questions about labor and how the tribes were going to be filling those jobs. And so that's something that we as the authority should be aware of. But otherwise, I thought the meeting went exceptionally well. And I really appreciate all the work that went into that. Over.
Yeah, we brought up the idea of an apprentice program. It's on one of the slides, and they grabbed onto that hook, line, and sinker. And we mentioned that in the near term, we're setting up a visit to the Ironworker Training Center.
We need to talk about that today.
Yeah, and we invited them to come along if they would like to, and they do. We had a couple of guys come up to Mike afterwards and to try and get that coordinated. So a lot of interest on that side.
Yeah, a lot of work for us. I want to follow up with Kiewit. One of the actions was follow up with Kiewit and find out what they're planning, and then maybe have some conversations around workforce. But
we did mention to them that our bridge, the way we're going to build it, there's not going to be hundreds of people for the apprentice program, but it starts the process, and there's bridges downriver that are going to be considerably bigger and lots more craft. In fact, there was a note came out that they save jobs for 43,000 people coming off of that bridge.
The interstate crossing.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
Well, that's all the way through the food chain.
things that they're counting, but yeah.
With that, that's a good segue into our communications discussions with Jessica and Anna.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually going to let Anna provide this update. Marla's unable to join us today.
Hi, everyone. I apologize. I did not know that Marla was not going to be able to join the meeting today. I was just on a meeting with her earlier today. We were talking a little bit about communicating some changes to the cost of the bridge when that comes up. So more to come on that. And there have been a lot of changes with regard to the plans to hold an in-person event around bike and ped amenities on the bridge. And we're now postponing that till like mid-November. And instead, we're going to have a focus group with bike and ped folks in probably mid-October, I think. So we're going to just go straight to that group, show them the new plans, and see what they think. And I think in terms of outreach, I think we're just, we're wrapping up on tabling. We've had a really successful summer talking to people and getting out there in the community. And I think we've already shared the big takeaways from that. We have just one more event coming up for the Bridge Centennial celebration. So we'll be out there with a table on October 6th. Looking forward to that. Jess, am I missing anything?
No, I think you captured the highlights.
The two things I had on here were, and I wrote them on here when I thought Marla was coming, but Commissioner Babbitts could add into this, is the Joint Commission on Transportation with Oregon. We had that meeting. I don't know if there's anything that you want to share related to how that event went. We had both the roundtable discussion where Commissioner Babbitts, Commissioner Kiefler attended, and then we had the public comment period where Commissioner Babbitts sat in on those comments. So
yeah, I don't think I got much out of the public comment period. That was focusing mostly on transit issues. But the meeting with the Joint Committee on Transportation, I think it was a strange format meeting. So it certainly took a little while to get our legs under us and figure out how to get information out. But I think we got out all the key points, and more importantly, had a chance to have one-on-one discussions with both of the co-chairs as well as several of the other members. And I think that's where those meetings are valuable and got what seems to be very strong support and also some guidance on how to interact with them. So I kind of use that myself as a lead into the October 1st meeting, which Representative McLean was, I mentioned, I started to talk with her and she instantly said, aren't we meeting in October? I said, yes. And she said, October 1st, right? It's on my schedule. I said, yes. And then she asked us to get Representative Cleveland. I'm sorry, Senator Cleveland, is Dan still there? No, it's Representative Cleveland from Vancouver area, I think, or maybe Longview, I can't remember which. Anyway, but this is a colleague of hers on the Washington in the Washington legislature who she thinks is going to be critical to her working with Washington on this.
So are we going to try, well, it's almost too late now, but are we trying to get to him before the 1st?
Yeah, we've already.
It happened immediately.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mike was on that, like a minute after she said it to me, Mike was on his phone making it happen.
yeah. So we talked to Brad. Brad reached out to her, and then Rep. McLean was going to reach out as well.
But has that meeting been set up or has it conducted?
It's whether or not she was going to attend the October 1st meeting and be able to.
So Dennis not there. What Dan told me yesterday is that it is on her schedule, but that's not a guarantee because sometimes she's not able to make things that are on her schedule. So she is currently on the list of attendees to this.
So the reason why I bring it up, we're meeting with a bunch of other candidates and reps. Should we add her to the list?
We should.
Just to make sure that she knows what the bridge looks like before the meeting if she can attend. And she knows about the issue if she doesn't attend.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Brad and see how much information he gave her, because he was going to reach out to her.
Yeah, the only concern I have is if you have a meeting right before, there's less likelihood she'll show up to the next one.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like that's what happened, with Maddox, with the Maddox meeting. He at the beginning said, yeah, I read your one pager. It's like, okay, well, that's what we're going to talk about.
Everything.
So I just went through in summary form instead. Yeah.
The other thing on the communications, Commissioner Keithler brought up and as really a question of interest to attending or going down to see the ironworkers facility where they do a lot of their training and stuff. And that they had invited the commissioners to come down if they were interested. So I wanted to bring it up to the group to see who might be interested. And if that's something you want staff to organize, is to get that set up. I thought if you're going to go down there and be in Portland, it might be also good at the same time to go over and visit one of the steel fabricators and maybe see what the steel fabrication process may look like. So if that's something of interest, then there's enough that would like to do that. I can working with Amy and others will just something like that. So
just to add to that a little bit, the girders that we're going to have on this bridge, as I said before, is about 19 feet tall. They're big. So I think it'd be really cool if we could get to that same fabricator that Keywood has already had some discussions with. To see that operation, if we could make it in the same day, that would be really cool. And I'd go in a second.
And so do they make them out of rolled steel? What do they make them out of? Okay. And they're
4-inch
millimeter thick.
No.
These are the on the top. 4-inch flanges on the top. So
thick.
They're big.
Thick flanges.
So if
do I have to get
I'm interested.
220 welder?
Yes.
So my 110 welder won't
stick
work.
welder.
Okay.
If you're interested, it sounds like there's enough interest to set something up. I'll work with Amy, figure out calendars and all that stuff.
I'm not sure I'll have time.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. It'll probably be later October, November when we'll do it, but it'll take a little while to get it organized. So, okay.
And just remember, we've kind of invited the tribes to go along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't think would hurt at all.
I think it's a great idea.
Fabrication shop. Either.
And you have time to socialize with them too.
All right, we'll work on that.
Yeah, we're doing trades and training and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for communications?
Not at this time.
Thank you. All right. Action items, conflict of interest policy and right-of-way transactions between the Bridge Authority and Port of Hood River. Staff update.
So I brought this up earlier. We were sent a notice letter that there was a perceived or potential or actual conflict in our right-of-way transactions between the Bridge Authority and the Port of Hood River. Legal counsel developed a conflict of interest policy specific to that. We sent that over to FHWA. They sent back some comments related to that, wanting to know specifically what actions the Bridge Authority was going to take directly to the people that were identified in their memo. So I responded back with what had been talked about as far as actions that were going to be taken, sent that back to them. They had a couple additional questions which legal has responded back to. So I think it's important at this point for the authority to consider taking action and adopting the conflict of interest policy, as well as if you're okay with the actions that were suggested and sent to them, taking action that we're going to implement those items specific to the Port of Hood River. And then I can at least go back to FHWA and let them know that the official action has been taken. If there's any questions about what was suggested, we can try to answer those. And
it's pretty vanilla, right, in terms of conflict of interest policies. It's like every other policy I've ever read.
Yes, and then specific to the items, I mean, just to run through them real quick, I did talk to Kevin at the port. They removed me from any reference on the port websites and stuff as being under the port. That really handled the first two. The executive director, Kevin, because he has two dual roles, when it comes to the Port of Hood River and the Bridge Authority and right-of-way transactions, he will only represent the port. Commissioner Anderson will only because Commissioner Fox is the last bullet, which he's going to recuse himself, I believe, from both.
Yep, already have.
Commissioner Anderson would take actions that maybe the executive director might related to the executive director position, and the same thing on the finance side. Would finance, where if there's some reason that we need a CPA, we would need to resolve that. But Debbie will only represent the Port of Hood River when it comes to right-of-way transactions. And then the appraisal process and everything is following FHWA Yellow Book, independent appraisers. There's no real conflicts there. So I have not heard 100% that this resolved everything, but I'm hoping by you all taking action today, formalizing it, we can send that back over to them, and hopefully this resolves it. We can continue on with the right-of-way process. We'll probably have to do something similar when it comes to Clicktack County, City of White Salmon. I don't think we're taking anything from County of Hood River or City.
Well, the County of Hood River alone, I am recusing myself from both sides. I don't think there's a technical conflict of interest in that case, but I don't have a clue how to separate out. I have responsibility each, and I couldn't live up to both of those.
And I won't get into the Mark could probably tell you that none of this was really a conflict of interest, but just in the perception part is what they're talking about, not reality of actual conflict of interest. So we're not saying in relationship to the port and the authority there was an actual conflict, but there was a perceived. So this covers both.
The way I think about it is the role. You have a set of responsibilities, and you have the conflict is an ethical conflict in terms of who's getting the better part of the deal. You don't get anything personally out of it, so that's not an actual conflict of interest. But who are you representing when you're in a room? And if the public can't tell, if you can't tell, it's confusing, and it just shouldn't be that way.
Yeah. We have plenty of people to step in. So
in fact, we're in better condition than most commissions because we have this alternate structure where we never have a trouble with recusals. We're never going to be in a role, or it'd be extremely unusual for us to be in a role where we couldn't take action because of recusals. So you just slide another one in.
So what do you want to do?
So I guess the other thing is maybe Mark wants to respond to this. In Marty's email from 4 days ago, one of the 3 bullets that he asked is incorporate the recusal process into the COI policy, conflict of interest policy. Having read it, it sure seems like there is the recusal process involved in it. So I'm fine with it. If everybody else is fine with it, I have no problem passing it.
Yeah.
I don't know where Marty was coming with that. And I think our response, said the same thing. It's addressed in section 4 of the policy. So with that, if anybody would like to make a motion, I would entertain one.
Right, I'm sorry, is there do you have a page number for a proposed motion?
15.
So I looked up the wrong one.
It's pretty simple.
There's 2 motions in there. Just
Start with the first one. I'll move to approve the conflict of interest policy.
Second.
There's a motion to second.
Probably don't want to second that.
Yeah, you should not.
I will second that.
That's a conflict of interest.
The policy.
I understand.
We learned nothing here.
Why would I vote for it if I really wanted to stay?
Okay, there's a second right there. Any further discussion or any more jokes? Hearing none. You got to.
It's not a joke. The point is, if you make money or lose money, that's a conflict of interest, right? It's an economic effect. In this case, it's the same thing ethically. Clearly, your interest is on the other side, but that doesn't mean that you should then participate to put it in place. So there. Anytime I get
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion. Thank you, Ben. Motion carries. All right, do you want to move on with the next motion?
I don't know if I want to anymore.
I've got one question on this next motion before we just approve it. I need to get up the signage. What page is the sign
That's 30.
example?
The signing.
The next motion is not on the next motion.
This is still on.
Yeah. The conflict of interest.
Never mind.
Yeah, and this is just as noted below in all the examples and whatnot.
Correct. It's, based on the issues they identified, these resolutions, do you guys approve that these resolutions resolve
Yep,
the issues identified by FHWA?
on page 15 and 16.
Yes.
Yep. I'm trying to refer to them, not this map. I move that we define the authority's specific actions to eliminate any actual perceived conflicts of interest related to the right of way transactions between the bridge authority and the Port of Hood River as noted below under the proposed resolution on page 15 and 16, those 5 bullets right there.
I would second that.
Is there any discussion? An interesting way to pass a resolution, but it works. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Ben. All right, moving on for project signage.
So we were asked by USDOT, I believe, or FHWA on the infra grants. They are requesting the projects that received BIL.
Yeah.
Bridge. I forget this one, sorry.
Yeah, yes.
It's BIL money. If Carrie's still on, he could.
Infrastructure.
It's bipartisan infrastructure law.
Yes. Bipartisan infrastructure law, money that has projects that have received that funding, they would like to have a sign posted at the project site indicating that that project has received that funding.
Do they want to amend the scenic act to allow that?
That is a good point that I had thought of. Do we need to get Gorge Commission approval to put a sign like that out?
As long as it's within the city of White Salmon, I would not think so.
General management area. It's a urban management area, yeah.
Right, but it's within the citywide salmon if we put it on the Washington side, so you gotta go through their sign process, which you've done before.
So it would be a
Salmon's process.
It would be a temporary sign.
Citywide
I guess, okay, so maybe we should revise this then does the board want staff to go through the process to be able to put signs up? The recommendation was do one in Oregon, one in Washington. Do you want us to work on trying to get signs put up?
So I would say if they have requested it, then we should find out if there are any, if it is reasonably feasible. If it's going to be a major effort, I suspect that they would agree with us not to do it.
Okay.
Then we should go back to them and tell them it's going to be a major effort and here's why.
The concern that I've got, if you turn to page 38, it shows some examples. And we've tried to stay politically neutral in our funding. And when you look at the sign, if I read it correctly, they would like us to say, project funded by President Joe Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law, or project funded by President Joe Biden's insert name of law, or project fund by President Joe Biden's whatever.
Ours would be the middle one, and it would be exactly like that sign.
I don't like that. I think we should say, instead of Joe Biden, I think we should say a bipartisan infrastructure law.
We will have to go back to them and see if they allow edits to the sign, but if that's what you want.
Wait, are they paying for the sign or are we paying?
No, it is funded. If you look at bullet number 3, there's a branding guide. If you click on that will show you exactly what they allow. And then I think it's bullet number 6 that says it would be funded by us. It says, but it would allow costs, reimbursement costs.
Reimbursement costs.
Yes.
Project would have to.
Yeah, if you look at the branding guide, it gives you a little bit more detail. If you click on that link.
I just think putting Joe Biden on here really politicizes the funding of our bridge. And there's people on both sides that are either going to really like it or really don't like it. And why create a fight? I think it's fine to recognize the bipartisanship of Congress and et cetera approving this and supporting it. But I wouldn't touch that one.
So maybe you should modify this then to say if there is a neutral partisan sign.
Look at the blue one.
The green one.
That one, project funded by the bipartisan infrastructure.
This was just, he was just showing.
Yep.
Did it find an option?
Yeah.
I like that.
So as long as it's.
I'm fine with that.
Then we can go forward with, okay.
Non-partisan.
Yeah, because it's a highway,
Bipartisan sign.
because it's on a highway, I think that's the only appropriate way to do it. Yeah, for highway right of way sign, 8 feet.
Hey there, my name is Adam Fisk. I'm with RTC. I just dropped in the chat an example of a sign used at the IBR project. It does not include Joe Biden's name.
And we pull up the
I
chat.
think I can't see the signs you're looking at right now, but I think it's the one you just came across.
Chat.
Was that up? That looks like it.
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep, that's what we want.
Perfect.
Okay.
Who is that?
Hey, this is Adam Fisk from RTC.
No, I'm wondering who is that in the picture. It looks like someone we should know, but I don't know who it is.
Someone cool.
So
Someone else cool.
That is Shaylin Bott, who is the administrator of the Federal Highway Administration until last week.
Oh,
Cool people.
too late. Okay, thanks.
So I guess the only other thing is, we need a little bit more because if we stick it on the current bridge, it's gonna look like the current bridge is funded by it, so.
Yeah, my thought was we need to find a location on the Washington and Oregon side. I wasn't thinking about putting it on the bridge. I was thinking it would be somewhere on the
Right off the
edges.
bike trail, maybe?
But it doesn't get, but it won't be put there until the project starts, right?
They would like to have it put there now.
If there's no.
They were okay with that.
Okay.
How about on the west side, just before the intersection, is a room facing the bridge? But it's on the west side of it.
We have to do some look, because we have to figure out whose right of way it is, and if it's ODOT or whatever, we have to get permission to put it on. And it's, if you are okay us to do it, we can go find the location and all that and bring it back to you and say, okay, here's the.
I think we should do it for one reason, and that is we've got the community now jacked up that, hey, this thing is really gonna happen. If we add this sign to it, that just helps cement that.
If it's reasonable to put up based on signage laws and whatnot, I move we approve placing the nonpartisan last option, the nonpartisan signage near the project site from both Oregon and Washington to recognize the federal investment in the project.
We could put it right on the front support building.
Yeah, I mean,
You said that right?
yeah, I mean, yeah, right over the door. But you know, whatever.
I think you could, that slope, they've got the stairways up to the toll booth. Just before, and be to the south of that stairway.
Staff will figure it out.
Build it up enough that you can see it driving north, but that's where the bridge is gonna come in. And there's
Have
space
to
there.
figure out a nice safe place for it that doesn't distract traffic and.
You can figure it out.
Did I hear a
who's
second?
right away and all.
No, not yet.
But Mike was getting ready.
I will step down and second the motion. Any discussion? Hearing no, Catherine,
It would be interesting to put it at the future location of the Hood River White Salmon Bridge funded by the bipartisan, I mean, the future location, because you would just start the calling of. But I do agree that if it's gonna become an issue and we're gonna have to do right of way and all that stuff, I would caution us, because this could be a money pit that just never ends. So.
That's why I
Over.
think
That's why it's directed for staff to find the best way to do that.
okay. Any other discussion?
So basically, staff is going to look into this, but before actually doing it, there'll be further discussion. You'll tell us what you discovered.
Yeah.
in
We'll give
research and
back
right
a
away, et
detail
cetera.
and location and everything.
I'm good with that.
All right. With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, do you want to talk about any of the upcoming action items?
No, let's get into the raise grant.
Okay, let's move on to the raised grant scope overview. Sanjeev.
Right. Share my screen here.
Oh, is Catherine still have a question or? is she
It's
not?
still hanging out there.
Okay.
Catherine, you want to lower your hand? Or would you like to speak? Stepped away.
There you go.
You close out the comment.
Yeah.
Chat. That part.
Trying to do the full screen here.
You're okay. You need to hit the okay on the recording.
Right, good afternoon, everyone. Sanjeev Tandil, HNTB Project Manager. I'll be managing this portion of this project. We're calling it a sub-project, RAISE grant. Finally, we received the RAISE grant agreement from FHWA last week, so we're excited to get this portion of this project started. This RAISE grant is mainly for the bicycle, pedestrian, and transit access improvements in this region. I'll go over the agenda would be project deliverables, stakeholders involved, what is action plan,
some types of improvements, examples, study area, and some next steps. Project deliverables here are written in such a way that we meet the US DOT requirements so that in the future, we can apply for implementation grants for design and construction of all the non-motorized improvements in the region. So that's the ultimate goal, is to get implementation grants. As part of that, there are like 8 components of US DOT requirements we need to meet to prepare an action plan. And as part of that, we will be doing equity analysis, accessibility, connectivity, safety analysis, and write a report that meets all those requirements. An action plan will be the ultimate deliverable here. That will include safe and reliable pedestrian, bicycle, and transit access improvements. We'll have conceptual layouts of pedestrian and bike, those improvements beyond the bridge, not just on the bridge, but beyond the bridge.
Speak to the scope of that. When you say beyond the bridge, is that to downtown White Salmon? Oh, you're about to.
I have that in the study area. I'll go over that. Yes, yes.
I'll wait.
Yeah. And our scope also includes 2 public outreach meetings, one way to take the draft action plan to the local communities, and also one final action plan once we have everyone agrees to the action plan. The scope also includes reviewing Kiewit's engineering and design of pedestrian and bicycle facilities on the bridge and at the proposed roundabout. So we will review and provide comment and input with that design as well. We'll get to the study area, but another important aspect is to work with all the local agencies. And so the idea is to form an action plan committee that will include all these entities. In addition to Hood River White Salmon Bridge Authority, we would like to work closely with the cities of Hood River, White Salmon, Bingen, ODOT, WashDOT, Hood River County, Klickitat County, Southwest Washington Regional Transportation Council, Mid-Columbia Economic Development District, Columbia Area Transit, Mount Adams Transportation Services. So I need to gather all the contacts. I have a few contacts. I'll be reaching out to all these agencies hopefully next week or so, and start communicating about this project in a little bit more detail, setting up meetings. We will also plan to have a kickoff meeting with all these agencies once we talk to them a little bit in October and then maybe November. So the goal is to form an action plan committee with many of these members here and coordinate with them on a regular basis. One question is, are there any other agencies that I should include here? Is there a point of contact with the Bridge Authority? Our team should be working closely on this aspect of, raise grant.
That's one key thing that I would like to get you all the way in on is we'd like to have a central point of contact with the authority. So if somebody would like to be that central point of contact with the authority for the race grants. Similar to how Eric did for the aesthetics committee, this would be somebody similar to like Eric did with the aesthetics committee.
Yeah, I guess we can do that.
We'll step back at once really fast.
And I think you're the right guy for it. With that said, is one of our alternates, would they like to step forward and get involved?
I will talk to Nate about this.
Jake raised.
Oh, Jake, I'm sorry, Jake. I think Jake would be fantastic.
Yeah. I'll crush his dreams.
Sure.
It's going to be exciting. I think working with a lot of agencies too on this project.
So related to that.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you. In Hood River County, there's pretty dynamic work on the safe routes to schools function, so with the school district. And while this is not a route to school, the network as a part, it being part of the network, I can see a nexus, and we can probably get some. They're very dynamic in getting grant monies, so this may be to our benefit.
Yeah, Megan's aware of all this, and his notes were.
I'm talking about doing it in official capacity. Megan, she jumped on it, but I'd rather have her doing it in official capacity.
Yeah, gotcha.
Maybe it's a route for one of the schools over in Hood River or Horizon.
Oh, right, because like your kid is a good example.
Also, like, didn't Wildwood Academy? I mean, wouldn't that be in because they moved across.
Good example, yeah.
Yeah.
Even more reason.
Okay, keep going, Sean.
So stakeholders' involvement itself would be like we would like to have project agreements between Bridge Authority and the cities of White Salmon, Winchell, and Hood River. There is some funding available for that because we'll be working closely with those agencies. We like to seek all the data available, all the planning studies, all the transportation. There's a lot of work done, some of it already, the bike networks and sidewalks. We want to complement that information, gather some traffic counts or bike bed counts, additional needed data. We will collect all that. Like I said, we will have meetings with this, project, the agencies, monthly and quarterly project meetings, participate in public outreach meetings, and also all the agencies we are hoping that they can provide input in the draft and final reports and other interim reports developed by the project team.
One of the other things on meetings is that what frequency would you like for this component to report back to the main?
Well, before you answer that, I've got a question. What is your expected duration for this report?
Yeah. So
how long is it going to take?
So overall, we have about 16 to 18 months to develop the final action plan. So the first 9 months would be to develop, 9 to 10 months would be to develop the draft action plan, including the equity, safety, accessibility, connectivity report. Then, I think by August or so next year, summer, we will take that draft action plan to the public, local agencies, present it to them, get some input back, and then go back and then update it further, the further action plan with the concepts, layouts, and all that.
So how does that work with applying for implementation funding?
Yeah. So once we have the final action plan, we need the final action plan before we can apply it for any implementation grants, because I guess we can apply, but we need to have a final action that will give us more points in the grants. Will be much more competitive, I think. So that will be after maybe June of next 2026. That's when we can apply.
So what do you expect the involvement to be from, say, the city of White Salmon? Are they going to be responsible for content within the plan?
Yes.
Are they physically going to write something?
So multiple things. I think the plan will be developed based on from their input as well, right? So we have to coordinate with these agencies. That's where the infrastructure is going to be built. So we'll be working very closely. So the input and coordination is one thing, but later on, once we have the final action plan, I think, Bridge Authority can apply for implementation grants, but if the project is in the White Salmon, my understanding is that we can use this action plan to apply for implementation grants within White Salmon as well, or Bingen or Hood River.
And when he says that means White Salmon could take this action plan and go submit their own grant.
Where I'm coming from is part of that deliverable to me ought to be a recognition by White Salmon that they can take this now and they know what they have to go do to write grants and so on. We're out of that business from an authority point of view. If it's off the bridge, not us.
That's exactly.
If it's on the bridge, it's us.
That's exactly right. Any implementation grants not related directly to the project, meaning something on us asking for funding for the portion of the bridge project, would be up to the local agency, city, county, whatever, to take this action plan and go use it however they want to pursue whatever grants they want.
So and I've shared this before, my big concern about this is this organization in the next 18 months getting sucked in to trying to run and manage and coordinate this thing and losing control of the bridge.
Right. Both cities have plenty of infrastructure in place. I don't know about Bingen's. I don't know specifically how Bingen's organized, but White Salmon and Hood River, I know, have infrastructure in the personnel in place to grab this and to run with it. I'm more concerned with how we make sure that we can also leverage it for the bridge project and that we get grant funding into that.
And that's why I think you're involved in it. in my mind, what I'm picturing this is that this effort is run by a very small council. And you're our rep from this organization. You're running it from the contractor point of view, but you have a rep from White Salmon, from Klickitat, from, okay, and you guys go meet someplace else.
Yep.
And periodically you bring back what's going on, and you're really watching out for us on the bridge component of it itself. But I think we got to get some separation here.
I think the degree to which the cities and counties have vibrant, have effective applications, I think that's going to help our applications.
Mhm.
They have to work together. So it's not, you're saying your arm's length, which is going to push it out. It's like they're going to have to link together really well, and they're going to complement each other.
No, I totally agree with that, but I'm saying running this operation needs to get separated from what our focus is. There's a tie-in to it, and there's a piece of it that we can use to try and attract additional funds for the bridge. It's coordinated.
Right.
So I guess I would, if we're not looking to be done and have a final until 2026, and then that means we then have to submit a grant, you're not looking at any dollars till 2028. So we have to make the decision, either we ask Sanjeev and the process to go much faster so that we can get a final, so that we can actually apply and have it work on us, or we have to just figure that this is not going to apply to the bridge at all, and this is going to be the tie-ins for the cities. So I guess from that perspective, where does the board feel like going?
Well, to me, if it's going to be a benefit to us, your 18 months can't be any more than about 7 to 9. Anything beyond that, it's going to be hard for us to gain much for our bridge, other than tearing the old bridge down, which is
Not necessarily. I guess I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. If we can get funding for this in 27, 28, 29, whatever, that still is funding that can go towards the project.
But you have to have full funding before we get to go until construction. So
But if you get 50 million here, that's 50 million you don't have to use as a TIFIA line.
but you're not going to know,
But
you're going to get that.
Offset your TIFIA line.
But you remember, it won't go back
But the TIFIA line we're planning on using for the removal of the old bridge.
You could still offset that infra.
And I don't disagree with you, Mike, but I think 18 months,
Well,
it's outside our
so
window.
let's talk about it a little bit, because I think that the 18 months, there are large parts of this that there's not even a basic concept. I use the word concept, right? So there's not much of a concept of how White Salmon, Bingen, Hood River link into this and what that looks like. Whereas the segment of it that's on the bridge, we kind of know what that's going to look like. And by the time we're ready to apply for funding, we'll have a very solid design package on that part. So is there some way to layer them so that we have the pieces that are on the bridge where design exists, concept already exists, design will exist relatively shortly, and that's ready to move forward for implementation grants, where the other parts, we're still at that point that we're doing implementation grants for the part on the bridge, we're starting design work on the pieces off of the bridge.
If they would let us, before this report is totally finalized, if they allowed us to pick a piece of it out, yes. I think realistically what's going to happen is our other funding grants that are underway is going to cover it. And for us to come back later and says, oh, wait a minute, I forgot about that 10-foot strip. We needed extra money, and they're going to see right through that. Because we've already spent the money to design it by that time.
We don't have an answer here yet. Let's let Sanjeev finish his presentation, and then we can go back into asking questions.
Okay, study area here. Basically, the scope, is basically written such a way that we will continue till the downtowns of city of White Salmon, Bingen, and also the Hood River. That's the extent of this particular action plan will be.
And so is there a study area marked on this, or is it simply?
Not yet,
study
not
area?
yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
It needs
basically.
to, depending on what level of information you develop, we need to overlay that with the NEPA documents to see if it's something that was cleared under the bridge APE, or if it's something that would require area of potential effect. So that is something that, depending on the area and how long, and that part of that, I think, is going to be discussion with the cities to see how far they extend it, and then constraining that to a reasonable area.
And for example, like if a bike lane is a part of the action plan on SR14 between the roundabout and Bingen, then based on the conceptual layout, we can seek for implementation grants on that. So I think that's
See that I agree with.
yeah, that's yeah. But on the bridge.
So maybe you get into this, but at each end of the bridge, because the bike lane is only on one side of the bridge, getting a bike to where they cross the property line onto the bridge is going to be a complicated project, right? There's currently not you're crossing traffic, you're going through the middle of the toll booth, whatever.
Thought through on the Washington side, the signaling. We're putting a lighted crossing for bicycles and pedestrians to go from the west side across the road to the east side.
Okay, so first of all, is that part of the bridge project?
Yes. The bridge project will temporarily tie in to existing facilities. That temporary could end up being the permanent solution too.
Right.
But it will tie into existing, if there is improvements that need to be made beyond that, that would be outside of the project. Better example is on the Oregon side. We will tie into the existing trail that's there today. How you get through the intersection and the interchange is a concept that will be developed through this or some other project.
On the the Oregon side, there is no existing trail.
Well, it's behind the port office.
Port trail.
Port trail.
The bridge is tied to that?
Yes.
Because that's tied to the road, so that's not getting you.
All we're doing is tying into that trail. And then this process will say, okay, how do we tie into actually downtown Hood River? How do we tie into through the intersection?
Coming on roads.
What does that
Bikes usually are, yeah. Okay, so I think I'm understanding this. Even what you're describing, though, you say, well, we have a solution there already. It's like, I don't think that you have a solution that's industry best practices. I think you have, people kind of say, hey, we'll put this here, but I would hope that we can step it up and have people who really know these things.
What we're talking about, what's kind of thought of right now is a very basic, fundamental pedestrian bicycle crossing at a light. That's what it is on the Washington side.
There's a ton of research on bike facilities and roundabouts and.
We'll follow the latest standards for roundabout bicycle connections to what is there today.
And that, to me, that's associated with the bridge. We give them a functional interchange.
Right.
Now, coming out of this, if they want to put a lot of bells and whistles on it, super. It's a different project.
It's not bells and whistles. I mean, you're making
you know what I mean?
A safe
enhancement.
Functional.
We're talking about having the reds flashing beacons with the crossings for the bike pads, right? And then connecting it to the sidewalks that are there today. And then tying into the other side so that they can get over to dock grade to some future, whatever there is.
Okay. So we're having a conversation about what comes out of an action plan. That's for the action plan to figure out. Ours on the policy side is whether or not we're asking them to go faster or not. And so let's let Sanjeev finish and then we can get back into it.
Well, this slide just shows like some of the example types of projects: missing sidewalk lanes, missing bicycle network gaps, crosswalk enhancements, curb ramps, ADA, safe routes to school, type of projects, traffic calming, transit stops, payment markings, signage, illumination. If there's a lighting missing on certain path, that action plan will identify that. So small traffic signal improvements, all these improvements will be part of that action plan. There will be a prioritized list of improvements as well. Again, this is my last slide here, but basically the kickoff meeting sometime November is what we are planning to have a meeting with all the agencies with the action plan committee, basically, and then monthly and quarterly stakeholder meetings. We'll be collecting all the data based after discussing with the agencies. So this is the schedule we have currently. The first public outreach meeting next year summer, and then second public outreach meeting in May of 2026. It seems long, but there's a lot of communication with various agencies, so that's what taken into account for this schedule.
So does this schedule work with our schedules? If we're going to ask for funding?
Outside the
right now, if we're trying to go to construction in 2025, no.
Okay.
I don't think we were hoping to start this a year ago. I don't think given him starting right now that he can get everything done in order to apply for a grant that would affect our 2025 construction. That's where we are right now.
Okay.
How fast can you go?
We are getting started.
How fast can you go?
I think one thing before I answer that, I think I need to find out if we can apply for these grants with a good draft action plan or not. If they allow that, then I think we can apply that later next year for any grants that come off.
I personally think this is icing on the cake. I mean, we let them run with it. And when it comes out, we take a look at where we are on our funding. We take a look at where we are on our estimated cost. And if we can use it, we'll use it. We shouldn't rely on the basic bridge funding on this program.
This won't make or break whether we do the project.
It won't.
Right. But you can get what, up to 40 million, 50 million on it?
It's a piece.
I think it maxes at 50.
Every bit helps.
We should talk to HRWSBA and see, or USDOT, that what if we include a piece in this grant that will focus on the bridge itself, that meets all the equity, safety, and connectivity aspects, and we use that as our document. We need to talk to them.
So go ahead, I'm sorry.
I mean, yeah, this might not make sense, but like every one of these agencies you listen here, they all have their own transportation safety plan. So how much can we take from that and sort of take what's already been created and then implement that and say, we are going to implement some of these things that City of Hood River, City of White Salmon have already identified as key components or something like that. Is that possible?
Well, I think mainly there are three agencies, Bingen, right, Hood River and White Salmon. So they already have a little bit of bike networks, but our goal is to how do we connect it further, this bridge area, and our bed bike volumes will be much higher. We need to calculate those as well. So it's may not work very well based on the existing proposed plan. Networks. We might need more infrastructure.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, so why is the data collection 225 and then your report is 725? So that's 5 months. Is that something that you can slim down there?
So the data collection is basically from next month onwards. We'll be talking to the agencies and collect all the data.
So if we get our agencies to kind of like we're doing, put a point person and say, hey, we need this so that we can try to get this bridge as well as these projects. Can you put this a little higher on your ability to get information to? Do you see any compression ability in this final action plan? And if so, how many months could you do it?
I must note that this is not like this draft equity is not completely dependent on this itself. Like in the sense, like we're going to start working on the equity accessibility analysis even within this period. It's not like we have to wait till the data is collected. But I think if we get all this information by October, November, all the data we need, like equity data, the census data, all the any counts we need to collect, yeah, there might be a room to reduce a couple of months here.
Just a couple months is all.
I think so. Again,
If we had everything by November, it would still take at least 7 months to put that together, 6-7 months.
That's what our team, when we talked about this with my team, who do this a lot. So based on the amount of coordination we'll have to do with several agencies, it takes 6 to 8 months to.
I'll tell you what I would do, guys. I would ask you to put a 90-day plan together.
Okay.
A detailed 90-day plan that basically at the end of 90 days, you've got kind of your overall plan laid out. You've reached out to each of these entities. You've got membership on your board for this entity. You figured out at least initially, what are you talking about as far as scope? So where does white salmon want to tie into this thing? Where does Bingen want to tie into it? How does Clickitat, where is its tie-in point? You don't have to figure out how you're going to get there, but you ought to be able to very quickly say, okay, here's where I want to go. And now once you have that, then I think you can, and understanding the information that's available out there, then you can put a realistic to-go plan together to get to your final report and then your public reviews.
And as I think about it, if you're trying to, dial this in, so we're not asking more and more people for more information, more meetings. You've got the city of White Salmon and the city of Bingen and state highways. You don't have any county roads. So I don't even know why Clickitat would really need to be as heavily involved in this as your other primaries. So maybe think of it as you might have your primary stakeholders and your secondary stakeholders. In that same instance, when you talk about every meeting or every time you come and talk to us, it's time you're not actually getting the plan done. I would say come when you have something that you either need from us or there's a big information data dump that you want to give to us. But for the most part, monthly, absolutely not. Even quarterly, I'm like, let us know when you get something done. This isn't on us. This isn't a primary duty of us. And we'll trust Jake to bring that when there's something for us.
Yeah, I'll take a look at this schedule a little bit more closely and work with if there's a way to cut down, that would be great. I mean, so the goal is to apply for grants in 2025 ending or something like that, right?
I wouldn't put that as a restraint right now, because what you're going to end up doing is an artificial restraint that you're not going to meet. So really go figure out your project first and then tell us what you can do. I think we're a little premature here.
I agree with that. Play with it. It'd be nice to go out there and figure out when the raise grant opening is in 2025, and then work back to see what would it take to get there. If you can get there, great. The one thing I hate doing is these multi-year stakeholders that we're all on so many committees, and if I get in there and get it done and it stays in my mind, but when it's going to take a year and I have a meeting once every 3 months, it just dies on the mind because I forget what I was doing from the last meeting. Get in, get it done, and move on.
There's something to remember on this is the action plan is only part of the total raise grant. There is another component of this to deliver the 60% plan. So a portion of this funding was actually going to developing the bridge plans. So it's, there's more than just the action plan.
Right, but if the action plan can get there to 60%, then we can also at the same time start applying. And if the bridge is a year or anything, that's a possibility that gives you one other option in the toolbox.
So what you're bringing up is really we need a master level schedule of how we're going to deal with this $3.5 million.
He has a separate scheduler from KNC that he's already started engaging with. He really needs to, he wanted to tell you all what was going on. Work with that scheduler, get with the cities, figure out what they have, what they don't have. What you said, figure out what the scope of the project is, and then he can come back with, or work with Arthur and Jake on what the schedule is, and then they can come back and tell us if they could meet a grant schedule that supports this project.
And then, of course,
What do you want to do?
he's gonna want to see what percentage or how much money in that 3.5 is for this effort.
Right.
Split that off separate and keep tracking it. And then what are we doing with the balance of it?
And we've got estimates on that. The portion of it's already going to the cities, so 400,000 in the application was set aside for the 3 cities. Roughly about 400,000 is going towards Kiewit in development, and a portion of it in oversight, and then the other portion is the development of the application.
Okay, we are gonna get this meeting closed by 4 o'clock, so.
Yeah, I have a problem.
Huh?
Sorry, but I have a problem. This is the first that I'm aware that the bridge project considers its goal to connect the bike ped facility to the sidewalks in.
When I say bike ped, if there's a bike lane that goes on 14, I don't think there's one there today. If they're using the shoulder, it'll tie into the road. Then it'll tie into the right-of-way network. We won't push bikes into the sidewalk. We'll push them to wherever they're going on 14.
So on the Oregon side, we have a bike lane that ends at the traffic signal that takes you into the Hood River Inn.
Correct. So that's where it's gonna stop as far as, we'll just tie into.
What will we be tying into?
It's gonna come down in and it's gonna tie into, go back to the trail. Right? So the main portion of the trail of the bike ped across the bridge is going to tie back into the port trail that's there.
So you're coming south on the bridge.
Yeah, but
You go to the first light, you make the left.
If you want to go to the Marina Drive, where it's gonna stop at that signal, whatever's in that signal, whatever's passed, which is a bike lane in the south direction. That is just gonna tie into what's there today. The bridge is not going to improve anything through any of those intersections.
It has to handle it though. And especially on the Washington side, we're putting a roundabout in. I want to be sure that the design includes handling bike traffic through the roundabout as opposed to just saying.
That I correct, yeah.
Saying it's on the sidewalk and. That's not how bikes work.
It will handle getting them through the roundabout. And then as soon as you get out to the tangents of the roundabout,
right,
they will tie into whatever's there today. If it's onto the shoulder, onto the lane, whatever it is.
It's a plan of what it will be in
And
the
then this will develop a plan that some future it'll look like X, but today it will just tie them back into the existing of what's out there.
Okay, say again what the Oregon side's gonna be?
The Oregon side is to come down and we're stopping work at the Button Bridge, the first signalized.
The first signal, right?
We will let the traffic tie into that bike lane that is there today. Right, and then part of the tie-in will go back and tie into the existing trail.
So a northbound bike is going to, after that after that traffic light, it's going to go to the right, go under the bridge and then loop back around to get up onto the.
Right, or if they're on the road, they will come up to the signal, they will cross at the signal, right? Because there's no lanes going across the bridge in the north direction. They will have to come to the signal at Button Bridge and whatever, Marina Drive. And they will have to come across the signal to then get on the trail to go across the bridge.
Yeah, so that's not a normal thing to do with bikes. We have to do better. So that's the one problem I see in this. So let's talk about it. I don't want to hold your meeting past 3 or 4 o'clock, but I don't think that's an acceptable. You're converting the bike from being part of vehicle traffic to being pedestrian traffic, and that's not a normal thing to do with bikes.
But you have to there because there's no northbound lanes on the bridge. You have to bring everybody over to.
I know you have to bring them over, but how you bring them over is critical. So let's.
That sounds like a great conversation, not for a regular meeting. And we can move on. Do you have anything else to add?
I'll be done with this presentation.
You regretting what you got into?
No. It's good.
I'm here to get into it. So
it's all billable hours and we're giving them those. Okay, is there anything else from a round table from my seatmates? Seeing nothing, I would announce that we have the Bridge Centennial on Sunday, the 6th at 9 a.m. Please, everyone, recall that the bridge gets shut down. So if you'd like to be on the other side, make sure you get there before it shuts down.
Or you can fly them across.
I'm going to be down there, so it's going to be more difficult. Our next meeting is Monday, October 14th, 2024, from 2 to 4 here and online. We do not have an executive session. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
If you do want to be in the Bridge Centennial thing, you do need to fill out their online registration so that they will let you there because you then agreed to waive liability.
And it still currently is free, correct? We got a lot of those questions at the tabling.
The bridge is going to be free all day is what they said on their website, and the permit you fill out online is a free thing, and you just get an electronic thing to put in your wallet.
Great.
Okay, thank you for the update and the reminder that I need to fill it out since I have to be there to hand off some.
Box of fruit, a Euro size box.
A Euro size box, I know, I gotta talk to our commissioner.
That's left, but.
Yeah, I know, he's supposed to call me later.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, and nothing else for the agenda, I will adjourn this meeting on time. Thank you all for coming, have a great day, and we'll see you shortly.